Welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive. It's your host C. I'm really excited to be here again. I've been traveling, been away, been busy with everything. Really excited to talk about some of the things that have transpired, but also really excited to talk about a topic when I'm thinking of, building relationships. As we talked about in the last episode, how to really grow. Gave you all some books that have helped me really change how I look at life, but also I read these books like Atomic Habits, something simple like that at least once a year to just evaluate and keep myself grounded. So I'm excited to talk about what we're going to be discussing today is reinventing yourself. So, giving you some hindsight a little bit about myself whenever I was thinking about reinventing myself. I had started off working in the restaurant industry, bartending and serving. And as I was bartending and serving, I found that, I wanted to be a restaurant manager. So, I had a chance to do that in various companies as I was growing up through those different chains. And what I found was, I wanted to do something different. So, the reason I bring this up is a lot of times in our life we don't feel like it's okay to pivot or it's not okay to continue doing the same thing, where we become loyal to a company or loyal to a job or loyal to things that sometimes no longer serve us in the long term. And this can come in different ways. And the reason I bring up bartending and serving and starting off as a restaurant manager and different things like that, that really helped me grow a lot into who I wanted to be in the future. And I mean that to say, that allowed me to transpire to think of, okay, how can I really shape reinventing myself a little bit, but not changing who I am, right? So you can still be yourself. You can be your full authentic self with no precaution of why or who when you're looking to reinvent yourself. The balance of what I want to discuss today is, what are the psychological changes that kind of have to take place? You have to identify the things you're attached to because the uncomfortness of uncertainty is going to be a part of when you're looking to reinvent yourself. So we're going to be discussing, what is it your perspective when you're thinking of, okay, how can I uncover a truer version of myself and become more one with myself? And a lot of it starts with the amount of emotional intelligence you offer to yourself in your decision making. So really, a lot of people think of reinventing themselves as I need to hit these habits and change them right now. It takes about 21 days to take and create a new habit for yourself. So we're using 21 days or using 1 month or 2 months to look at and say, okay, if I create one habit a month, that'll be 12 habits that I create in 1 year. So using the 21-day thought process with one habit at a time is the best way to start to reinvent yourself. For me, I had to start reading again. So I had stopped reading a lot of books as I was working in the restaurant industry because I was tired or always busy, or Saturday and Sundays are the money making days, so it's very difficult to be consistent with what you want to see and see get done. So the balance of, okay, hey, I started reading more, I started investing back in myself, and reinvesting back in yourself, whether it's going back to school, whether it's taking courses, whether it's learning a new skill, or whether it's actually starting a new role at a different company that you've never started and you have to learn these new hard and soft skills. Whatever it is, don't be afraid to actually go after those things, because when you look back on your life when you're 65 or older, and you're thinking of, hey, I'm getting closer to that retirement age, so what am I going to do moving forward after 65 when you're retired? But you want to think back to what you did and how you did it and where you spent your time, because you only have one time to do it. So my advice to anybody is, if you're looking to reinvent yourself, really evaluate these two things. What habits do you want to change, whether it's food habits, whether it's exercise, whether it's reinvesting in yourself, learning new skills, getting a promotion, asking for help, whatever it may be, starting a business, becoming an entrepreneur in some capacity of any kind. Reinventing yourself doesn't mean you have to change who you are. And I think whenever we're thinking about some steps we're going to walk through, and I have got some of these steps from some of my friends who are psychologists, but also some of my friends who are professors in this world, that are really giving me really good feedback on, when you're thinking of reinventing yourself, Clarence, and you start from a place where you're unsure of where you're going to go and how you get there, the balance isn't always the true destination. It's a matter of the journey, you know. And as you're growing and changing in your journey and your reinvention of yourself, you can actually balance out, you know, the things you want to take and the things you want to keep. So as you start to think of, you know, what can I do to reinvent myself? So one of the things I wanted to do was look and reflect on a time that, you know, a year from now, where would I be and how do I feel? And I think, you know, we can all say, hey, things are definitely difficult right now across the world, across the nation, wherever you may live. There's some type of you know, tragedy or despair that's happening or changing. So when you're thinking about things that you can change or things that you can offer in your life, that can add more positivity to it, start to read books that are going to help you feel more uplifted and have the gain of knowledge. And the three things that can help you start reinventing yourself first is working on your emotional intelligence. So removing the emotional part and understanding that taking everything personal is not necessarily the way to handle everything. And then adopting this rule, the rule of two, meaning that anytime from an emotional standpoint someone says or does something that makes you feel a certain way, always have your brain think of one or two, if not three, reasons of why someone or something is happening to you from an emotional standpoint, to ensure you're offering yourself as much emotional intelligence as possible to ensure you are driving the right actions against whatever is happening to you personally or professionally or even in that emotional realm. So emotional intelligence is the first thing I would say anyone needs to work on when they're thinking of, hey, what can I do first to reinvent myself? And then you want to work on your maturity. So the maturity of how you handle situations, how you speak to people, tonality, what you offer as feedback, and sometimes not saying anything at all is more powerful than offering feedback. So maturity comes in a lot of different ways. And the thing about maturity is it does not matter how old you are. It does not matter how young you are. You can have emotional intelligence and you can be as mature as you want to be, but the lack thereof, sometimes what's around you where other people or groups may not have that same level of emotional intelligence or maturity, it becomes difficult sometimes for people to maintain their own version of who they are if they're not on their own or if they're, you know, not young, if that makes sense. So when you're thinking of the two things that I'm thinking of that really helped me reinvent myself and really start to help me understand how I'm going into my situations. And then the last third one that I would think of whenever I'm thinking of just a quick wash, rinse, and repeat method to help me start to look at how I'm reinventing myself is execution. So all life is execution. That's it. Even if you fail on what you execute on, you can always go back to the drawing board and draw up a new plan to try and execute on something else. The purpose of life is to execute on things, and the more often you execute on things in your personal or professional life, it drives the results you want to see or the outcomes you desire. So when we're thinking of reinventing ourselves, the main thing, again, that I would share is using that emotional intelligence, driving what makes you happy and what makes you sad, what makes you angry, understanding those emotions about yourself so that when you're in situations that make you really happy and really sad or really angry, you know how to have the maturity that it takes to handle those situations in the best light. Because as you're thinking of people, not only creating opportunities for yourself in the future, but how you can really drive the right emotional intelligence in conversations to create the outcomes you want to see. And then moving right into the maturity side, you know, it's super important to have that level of maturity, especially with the different situations and things that are happening within our world. And when you start to think of the value of you know, what maturity can do for you and the doors that it can open, I can give you some context that for my emotional intelligence and maturity that has been offered or granted to me as a gift, I think of it as a chance to go out and try and help and support as many people who are trying to change their own lives. That's why I'm super excited about running this podcast with Deep Dive, to kind of give you all some context and make it a little bit more desirable for people to understand, hey, you can be a normal person and still have the same capacity of towards life and what you want to see out of it. And then, as I mentioned before, execution. So the number of things you execute on really determines how or what you get out of life and how fast you get it or if you don't. And that execution level shouldn't be compared to what somebody else has as their level of execution. And I say that to say the balance of execution really boils down to what needs to happen and how soon. And a lot of people think, hey, I execute every day. I do everything I need to do to get myself moving forward, and I'm still in a rut. Well, execution doesn't just necessarily mean just go get the task done. It's how you get the task done, right? It's how you execute. It's what you execute on. Is this thing that you're doing next step going to get you a promotion, going to help you start your business? Is it going to help you drive the results you want to see in your personal life? Is it going to help you lose weight? Is it going to help you eat healthier? Is it going to help you think better thought, more positive thoughts? Whatever it is that may be, execution starts with what you want and how you do it. So when you're thinking about those three things, I think everyone has the opportunity to grow in all three of those areas. As myself, I'm not perfect in any three of those areas. I definitely need to work on all three and continue to grow in them. But being able to recognize that you need to grow in those areas is where the best place to start. So when you're thinking about starting and finishing and going into a place of unsureness of when you're trying to pivot or reinvent yourself, just starting with a clear plan and write down the things that you want to create new habits on. So again, reinventing yourself is not a bad thing. It's actually a really positive and can be very lucrative, not just from a monetary standpoint of making money, but we're talking about time and energy. So the three things that actually cost us as people in this world is time, energy, and money, right? But the balance of, hey, if I go invest in myself, I actually get more time and I have more energy to do the right things. So I just want to layer on a 5-layer framework of reinventing yourself. And the first one layer is awareness. Ask yourself, where am I living and how am I living, right? So it's like, am I living on autopilot? Notice your daily defaults, what they can say about who you are, like thinking of, hey, where am I spending my time? Where could I spend my time better? Do I spend 100% of my time doing this? Or could I break it down into chunks of 25%, right? And say, hey, I'm going to spend 25% of my time here, 25% here, and maybe another 50% in another place. But whenever you're breaking up your awareness and where you're spending your time is super important. And then, the second one is layering in vision. You have to have a clear vision about what you want and where you want to go. The better vision you have, the easier it is for you to know how you're going to get to where you're trying to go. And the vision entails that, hey, I understand what I want and what I desire. And God and the universe have a way of showing us what we want and how we get it from the world and the universe. When we think about it. So, your vision has to be aligned with what you're aware of. And what you're aware of, and it helps your vision actually become more clear. So one of my things is to reframe is don't aim for better, aim for aligned. So mind you, everyone always thinks you have to just be better, 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 which is great. We're all trying to get 1% better, but it's more important to be aligned with what your vision is and how you are aware of how you're going to get there. So that's where I would say the best place to start. And what version of yourself would you want to feel like you want to see in that vision? Is it someone who's, really proud of what the things they've accomplished from reinventing themselves in the future? And we're talking about even a month from now, you can make that change. So whatever those things are going to be, just keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. Then layer 3, I think this one's really good because you have to identify a shift. So, you got to identify a shift in your habits. You got to understand, am I serving myself or am I serving others? And, when we're thinking about the identity shift, there's a lot of people who serve others, which that is absolutely great, and there's nothing wrong with that. Even if you serve others, you still have to have a little selfishness about yourself and make sure you're always serving yourself to ensure that the identity of your vision and your awareness of where you want to go and be while you're helping others is still being taken care of too. So that balance of making sure, okay, hey, how do I create habits that stick and serve as a new self story? And example is I'm trying to eat healthier. I'm the type of person who respects my body. So that's an easy way to start to identify a shift, right? So identifying the shift is saying respecting your body. It's not disrespectful necessarily to eat a Twinkie, but it's disrespectful to eat a whole box of Twinkies. Okay, that's what we're saying. Don't go eat the whole box of Twinkies and then be like, well, I can't reinvent myself because the box of Twinkies tasted better than just saying, hey, you know what? A Twinkie once a week is where I need to start, and not a Twinkie once a day. So just really identifying, what's going to help you, how it's going to affect you, and what it's going to do is super important. And then number 4, this one is super important. Environment design. It's easier to live into a new life when your surroundings support it. So for me growing up, I didn't always live or have the best circumstances that I would have always liked or loved, but that is not how you determine where you want to go. So, going to the different places to see how other people live or how you could live was good enough for me to know, okay, hey, there's an opportunity for me to eventually design my own environment that I want to see for myself and how to actually get there. So that balance of environment is super, super important because there's a thing that they call the nature versus nurture. So as you know, in the type of environment that you live in, what if it's healthy and it's thriving and it's positive and it has a lot of knowledge and it's things that can pour back into you, you have more likely that group of community of people, from children to families to jobs and careers that all match up with what I just mentioned. But then you also have the idea of the nature part, where some places is a little bit harder. Some places the environment and the education isn't up to speed, or the resources or the lack thereof of resources aren't as available, and the jobs don't match with what the environment and community could be because there's a lot more stress on the income and the resources that are not always available. So when we're thinking of those different things of the environment, it really is truly helpful to get into the right kind of environment to really start to shift your mindset around what you can have and what you can't have. And now, mind you, that's not saying where you live at, where you're going, and how you like to live is a bad thing. It's more of the environment that you put yourself in the community you live in, is how you're determining what surrounds you with your vision and how you're trying to get there. So when you're starting to think of those different things, balance out what's keeping you and what's holding you back. And the environment is, again, important to level of resources, technology, education, income, variety of new or old. How often new things get built are determined whether that nature versus nurture is happening in that environment consistently, right? And people are reinvesting back into what's important as they want to watch their communities grow. And then when we're thinking of the last one, integration and resilience. So when we're thinking of integrating change, that's the real deal breaker for a lot of us. So change is less grand transformed, it's more about sustained integration. So when you're thinking about sustained integration, you don't need to make big behemoth changes all at once. What you really want to do is really evaluate what changes you want to see in the time frame you expect. So if it's in the next 3 months, if it's the next 6 months, if the next 12, those are the changes you want to identify as ways you can really help yourself get to where you want to go and how you get there. The balance then comes into the resilience of making that change you want to see. So, an example for me, I'm not a big fruit or vegetable person, but started a garden this year for the first time. And as I started the garden, what I found is the garden is a great place to get resources for strawberries, cucumbers, all kinds of fruit that I would have not been aware of, watermelon, that you can utilize and start to think of, okay, hey, I would have not normally eat this fruits or vegetables as often, but because I started a garden and they're just growing and it's working well, I can just eat from this garden and actually use it as a way to take care of myself. So just using that as an example is wasn't always buying groceries for vegetables and fruit because I was like, man, sometimes this stuff is a little expensive. Cucumbers, $3. And I was like, I can just go pluck it out from my garden in the back. So that balance of being able to go and take things that you're like, okay, hey, how can I add something into my life and think of a cool way to add it in? And for me, it was a cool way to say, hey, I can start a garden take care of myself, add a little bit more fruits and vegetables into my diet. And doing that, it's not actually costing me extra money. So now that balance of in my monthly diet, I actually have more fruits and vegetables, and it's due to just starting a garden, but it wasn't an actual thing I had been doing previously before. So that balance of really finding out what kind of change you want to make and being adaptable and being open minded. So that's where, when we're thinking about reinventing yourself, this whole topic is about basically knowing when to pivot. And the sooner you know when to pivot, whether it's in a relationships, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whatever it is, you will be better off long term for the outcome, because at the end of your journey, as we talked about, when you're 65, you want to look back on where and what you got out of life, not what life did to you or what life didn't give you, right? You want to look back on what things you executed on. You want to look back on the love and the things you shared with people who cared about you and gave you the time of day around the things that you wanted to discuss towards your vision you saw for yourself. So that balance of knowing, hey, the only thing that's keeping me from being the best version of myself, because everyone else is taken. So, when you look on social media or you look at these different places where you see celebrities, remember, these are all just platforms. The only truly people that matter internally are ourselves as one, right? Because you come into this world by yourself and you're going to leave by yourself. So when you're thinking of, man, I'm not LeBron James, I'm not Michael Jordan, I'm not Kobe Bryant, RIP Kobe, love him to death. When you're thinking about, man, I can never jump 10 feet and dunk the ball, like that balance of being okay with what gifts you have, but working on your version of your rich life is going to be super important. And everyone has their own version of their rich life. So that's why reinventing yourself is so important, because don't think of your life as you don't have time. Don't think of your life as it's too late, because it's never too late. It's never too late to reinvent yourself. Start with small changes to make big changes happen within your life, whether it's personally, in your relationships, professionally. And mind you, as you're thinking of being loyal to things and you're thinking of, okay, hey, I can't make this change because I'm really loyal to this personally, professionally, or in a relationship, you want to make sure it serves you first. So make sure there's always that little bit of selfishness with yourself when understanding why you're doing what you're doing, because a lot of people will truly never understand you. And I say that to say, I don't expect people to all agree with things I have to say. I don't expect people to like all my opinions. Matter of fact, I'm not for everybody, and I know that, and I'm okay with that. That is totally fine. I'm not trying to be for everybody. But the balance of knowing that about myself, knowing myself, and being authentically okay with who I am is where I want to share back with everyone else. That's the first version of yourself you want to get to, is how do I get to the version of my authentic self that I love? I can look in the mirror, and mind you, this is not egotistical. This isn't like infatuation. This is just truly endurance and love for yourself, because if you cannot love yourself when you look in the mirror, you cannot go out into the world, and you cannot go out and love anybody else, but you can't go out into the world and have a positive feel on the world because you can't learn to love yourself. So the message here is reinventing yourself starts with loving yourself. Reinventing yourself starts with knowing when to pivot. Reinventing yourself starts with understanding your emotional intelligence. Reinventing yourself starts with how mature you want to be towards situations, right? And mind you, the balance of what you get or don't get doesn't always come from what you have or don't have. As I mentioned before, I come from very humble beginnings. So coming from very humble beginnings has helped me understand that it's okay that you don't have everything when you first start, right? But that doesn't determine where you're going. It doesn't determine what you can get and what you can't get. Because again, it goes back to execution. So if I didn't have the things I wanted when I was young, when you get to a certain age, to a certain point, you can go find or work towards the things you want that you didn't have when you were young. And something as simple as, growing up, my mom and dad never owned a home. I've had a chance to be a homeowner for the first time, so that balance of knowing like, hey, the door is not shut just because it was shut when you were young or when you were growing up. But the balance of even, as you grow up, if you never want that, you want to go live in California or New York and you want to live in a condo or something, off the beach or down in the city, whatever those different things may be, it's still important to your rich life. And I think as you're balancing out these different things that everyone is going through across the nation, from inflation, AI, from the lack of support and adoption to what's really actually happening on an individual basis to each American, is what we all have to kind of work through together, but recognize that, hey, everybody's going through something. Nobody we talk to or around is not going through something in some capacity, right? So again, continue to have compassion, continue to be open-minded, continue to have emotional intelligence, and continue to be mature about the life you want and how you want to lead it. And again, if you like this episode and talk about reinventing yourself, please like and subscribe. Go listen on Spotify and watch us on YouTube and our Apple Podcasts. Again, share this video. I think it's super helpful to talk through these different things and have a listen to how you can evaluate things in a different perspective. And that's kind of what I wanted to share today, is to ensure as you're going through life, it is hard, right? It's not easy. It's not always fun. But the balance of finding the fun and finding the beauty in the madness, and also finding the joy that the small moments bring you, whether it's with your family or your friends, or moments that come once in a lifetime. So that balance of continuing to be grateful, show gratitude towards God and the universe, and God and the universe will give it back to you in tenfold. Now, I'm not a guru. I'm no guaranteed person. I don't make promises. That's not how I live. I'm just letting you know things that I've received and what I've watched and how things have happened and transpired for me. And I say that to say, giving you some context, at one point in 2020, I had started a small business called the Coconut Stick, and I got and beat out 4 million people with this one product. So at one point in my life, 5 years ago now, going on 6, I was going to be on season 12 of Shark Tank, and I made a YouTube video. You can check it out, Coconut Stick LLC. It was a great opportunity for me to not only start a business in 1 year, never ran a product business, not really for sure how to scale it, had the opportunity to make it to the second phase of Shark Tank, scale the business a little bit to be able to make actually a profit off of it, and then really recognizing quickly, hey, I need to pivot from this because I want to focus in a different area in my career, but also I want to focus in a different area of business in the future. So just using that as an example, where if I would have kept the momentum from what I recognize as a huge opportunity by making it to the second round of Shark Tank and seeing that there was a great product that I was able to develop, didn't necessarily mean that I needed to stay with that opportunity. And I share that with you so that whatever you're trying to do, don't give up on it. Whatever you want to do, don't give up on it. If you haven't even started doing it, don't give up on it. The balance is knowing that you have opportunity, and it all starts with what you execute on. That will determine in 1 year, if 1 year somebody calls you back for that new job opportunity or promotion, or that one moment that you're ready to buy your own small business. Whatever it looks like, just remember, all you have to do is continue to execute, have the maturity to manage to all of the things you're executing on, and be sure to have the emotional intelligence to know when to add a certain emotion or no emotion at all. So again, appreciate you all listening to the deep dive. I'm going to be having a guest next time we're on here. I'm excited about our next guest. We're going to continue to have really great topics and really great conversation about things that are important to us as individuals, but some topics that are being brought to me that I just want to share back with you all. And again, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and please share all across your friend groups of anything that might be helpful that was mentioned. And again, appreciate everybody checking us out, and we'll talk to you guys soon.